We are going live right now. Do 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 do. Hooray for us. And now here is the live stream. Where'd the live stream go? Where'd the live stream go? Live stream. Stop the live stream. It says we're live streaming. Oh, we are live streaming. Wow, it worked on the first try. Yay. Hooray us. Hey, we're back. We're a few minutes late, but that's okay. We go long all the time. But we were, as usual, we were having a good little conversation in all the alpha in the world that the three of us have contributed to the ether, right? To the entire universe is quite phenomenal. And GP, we before I said, hey, stop, we need to talk about this while we're live streaming. We were talking about you can have setups given to you. We show you them. Other people show you them. There's a lot of good other technical experts out there who show charts and great setups. But at the end of the day, the trader sitting in the chair has to pull the trigger on the trade. Yes or no?
Yeah, absolutely. I think quite often they haven't understood what you've been teaching them for months, years, whatever, and they haven't taken the time, right? And if you sorry guys, if you take the time to understand it, when those setups present themselves, there's no other explanation that's necessary besides, okay, where are we getting long? What's the strike? What's the stop? Boom, done, right? So recent example is we were just talking about it is hymns, right? When the Amazon news came out on an all-time high breakout in a multi-time frame bullish setup, and you have this volatility candle at all-time high breakouts, you may not know this, but those are typically liquidity grabs. And those liquidity grabs are enough to take this to all-time highs and then some. You saw a lot of this happen during the yen carry crisis as well. It happens about 3 or 4 times a year, right? Sometimes maybe two or three, but it happens 3 or 4 times. They do these quick little liquidity grabs. They destroy you thinking the world is going to end, but it's right into support or right slightly above support or right below, and then it booms out, right? And so you're seeing it um, on this chart that Ben's sharing here is look, it undercut everything, made you question your soul in that moment. But what did it not do? It did not make a new low. It broke your 50-day, it broke whatever you're watching, but it did not make a new low. So a lot of times people focus on individual um, indicators or stochastics or Ichikumu or whatever the hell these things are called, but you're not looking at the human behavior part of this conversation.
Yeah.
Is that it broke all those, but did it break a key level where people have been stepping in and buying? No, no. It got destroyed for 30 something percent in 2 days or 40% in 2 days, and it could not break this new low. We had this conversation, our first conversation, Nick, Lamb research, right?
Oh
In
yeah.
2022, all this power, and could not make a new high. And what was that the start of? One of the worst kind of grinded down 6 month periods in a really long time, right? So that to me is more important than any other indicator on the planet. Um, because the charts, all they represent to me is what other individuals with a brain or not a brain or half a brain or whatever it is you want to call it are doing live. You have this historical information, and if you're not using it to your advantage and you're like, oh well, it broke the 50-day, so it's game over, it's like no, it's
Yeah.
not. But I can't teach that, in one moment, right? That's something that's learned over time. That's screen time. That's I can't write it in a book and for you to understand, right? I can't
Well, I mean,
do
we
a
we
book.
have we have there's a lot going on, right? There's people who want to try and learn, and for whatever reason, they may not be as confident to pull the trigger on said trade. We have some people who may lead busy lives or who are just too lazy and who just want to copy trades. And for whatever reason, either they do or don't copy the trade, right? And then we have another group of people who's just sort of ambivalent about any free alpha that's out there because they just don't trust it, right? I think those are kind of like the three groups of people that we see across the interwebs, right? And it's hard to cater to such a diverse audience. And I think all we do is we say why we do what we do, and we try to give good reasoning behind it, and we should try to show the charts behind it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's up to anyone who listens to us or anybody else who gives away free alpha to be able to jump on that train, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nick?
Like the with how much information is out there, like between books, online services, YouTube, it's becoming more of a trade the trader than I think it ever has been. I could totally be wrong on that. Maybe it's just my own uh thinking, but like, talking about like the 50-day, for instance, and like how to look at like patterns developing along in conjunction with individual candles and candle patterns. On top of that, if you're looking to get in a particular name, having an understanding of your time of the day. Is it the first 30 minutes, first hour? Are you looking for a lunch pull in? There's so many different things that come with seat time that, yeah, you really can't. I don't know how you could possibly get it all out there. Like, know thyself is kind of like what comes to mind. It's like, hey, what time frame are you on? Maybe you shouldn't even be looking at daily charts. Maybe you
Most
should,
people shouldn't be. Most people
yeah,
should not be.
right. Like if your time frame is like 6 months to a year out and longer, like I don't even know why you would, because the reality is that like your entry really doesn't fucking matter. I mean, it does to a degree, but like, what are you going to squabble over $1 or $2 when you're trying to catch like, I don't know, 50 to 100 plus, like, or on whatever it is that you're. I mean, that's the goal, right? Like you're investing for the long term. So what are you? I don't know. I just
Well, I
like.
mean, we can use Bitcoin as an example, right? Like this entire period, I even said myself, I don't know when it's going to go. I think it's going to come at the end of September. But I'm going to buy this range as low as I can buy this range, right? Because my for Bitcoin, my my time frame is years, right? And if I have the belief that this is going to be six figures sooner rather than later, why do I give a shit if I'm buying at 55,000 or 60,000,
Or
right?
even when it goes. If
Doesn't
it's in
even matter.
base and you're a DCA, or like the longer it spends the time in that base, the more you're accumulating at a low cost.
Yeah, but the patient's conversation, when you can go on OnlyFans and make $80,000 a month, they don't give two shits about, right? Like if you can just, I'm not saying doing content creation is easy because it is hard work. I'm not poo-pooing it, but it's a lot different than going on an oil rig and making 80 grand a year or whatever, right? In terms of the effort it takes there. So in general, where I was just having this conversation with my nephew this weekend, which is this generation that's coming up is looking for quick answers to easy cash. And so um, when it doesn't go, and I can't blame them because in the last 15 years, we've had a flash crash. We've had
Multiple flash crashes,
What?
really.
Yeah, multiple flash crashes. We've had the Chinese currency crisis. We've had COVID. We had the taper tantrum in 2008, where you literally are seeing 5 years of gains evaporate in weeks, right? So the market is, to me, the market in general is in a late stage cycle. This is the stuff that happens in late stage cycles. This this insane types of moves. I don't know when that late cycle is coming to an end, but in the meantime, it's not over yet, right? So and when you add these things, and you can see it, right? Um they're layering in these zero DTEs. We went from monthly options to weekly options to daily options to I'm at some point, I'm sure, and this is if we get this
Hourly option.
if we get hourly options, I suggest you'd start trimming like crazy, right? Like it's probably the beginning of the end, right? We're not there yet, but if they start doing this stuff, dude, we have single stock ETFs. What in the actual fuck is a single stock ETF? ETS is an exchange traded fund.
Not a stock.
It's one stock. It's like it's ridiculous the behavior, but sorry, I'll rant over. But him's all-time high, by the way.
Yep.
Uh,
Well, you're preaching
yeah.
what I was on last week, and still on. I got a text from a friend this morning about Tesla. Oh my God, you sold at 350, it's 360. My covered calls or my calls are going to be fucked. And it's like, dude, like getting called away is not the worst thing that can happen, right? Like
Yeah.
you're going to get paid for the shares ultimately, and the shares don't. I mean, it doesn't happen until Friday. There's no guarantee that it'll close up there anyway.
But you can also
You know,
just close the calls
yeah.
or and roll
Well,
them,
or
right?
buy them back, right? If
Yeah,
you
yeah,
sold them.
exactly. So, time decay works in your favor, but I don't understand the mentality that occurs in these stocks that people choose to sell covered call strategies when they're start in an uptrend. Like use the covered call strategies when they're closer to the end of their uptrend. Use a covered call strategy when they're in a base and they're at the top of the base. But
Yeah.
in
Well, I'm not saying that the strategy was wrong or right. The
yeah,
point that I'm making is um you similar to what you were saying that we may be in a late stage cycle, you may not want to have as much trust on everything as you would in a mid stage cycle, whether that's selling some, holding some, or buying some more. You may want to be a little more present on pulling the trigger one way or the other, right? Like it's
yeah.
it's not something that you can just um, let go and not babysit, basically.
Yeah, and that's this market, but I also don't think late stage is 3 months, right? So I think we are just starting late stage. So you're starting to see all of this stuff happen, and that happens over the next 5 years or so, right? So that's I think where we differ, Ben, on that conversation is still think it's late stage, but I don't think it's months away from this late stage cycle. Yes, we can have a 30% dip randomly. We literally got 17% in August on a yen carry crisis, right? Like I get that.
Yeah,
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about cyclical tops, right? So that like I don't think we're that close to that cyclical top yet.
I think we're looking more like a 2022. I think that's what we're in for, personally.
Yeah, and that's possibility,
Yeah,
but I need the evidence first, right? And I don't have the evidence to support that
right.
conversation.
And I'm not all cash, right?
Yeah, yeah, I know you're not. This is not
I
criticism.
was clear about saying I'm leaving stuff on, but I've trimmed a lot and I'm still trimming a lot. And I want to have cash when the time is right. And if not, I've got 50% cash to buy other investments with.
Yep.
If it's a ripping, roaring bull market still in the next 6, 8, 12 months, I might have missed on things that I was holding, but I've got cash to deploy elsewhere to hopefully make that up somewhere else. So I'm not concerned with it. I just don't think, for me, it is wise to hold on to speculative plays and losers and things that have ran like crazy already. I might be wrong on all three of those counts, but to me, it doesn't seem prudent.
Yeah, well, one of the best indicators that we're potentially in a rug pull area is if you pull up the stock is KODK.
KODK. Kodak, Eastman Kodak.
You
Look
know
at
when
that.
Kodak starts going, it's getting crazy.
25% ripper
When
today.
this thing starts moving, you know it's getting there.
How's Boeing doing? We haven't shit on Boeing in weeks. Oh my God. Well, it reclaimed that old weekly line there.
Yes, I don't need to shit on Boeing. It shits on itself.
Yeah, it steps on its own dick, as a former coworker of mine used to say.
But look, chips are in a distributive cycle. I don't know if anyone agrees with me yet, but to me, it looks like chips are in a distributive cycle. I don't think it's distribution long term. I think it's the pair trade that's going on right now, which is they're using chips as a source of cash to buy these names that should benefit from the new
Yep,
presidency regime, right?
I see that.
And so the bottom is already falling out in a lot of names, and you can see right now what they're doing is they're hammering NVIDIA and TSM, the predominant leaders of that sector, and they're buying up the ones that have already. So they're dispersing even within that rotation of chips, right? And so I personally think the chip rotation and the mega cap rotation probably ends at the end of December or into December OpEx. Maybe it carries through January. Um, but I don't think chips are bad. I just don't think that's where money is flowing right now. It's
Yeah,
where money is flowing.
I don't think chips are bad either, and I'm waiting to see if this pattern and this channel holds before I decide to do anything. So I've got the 50 weekly down here on the SMH, which aligns with this prior top before we ripped earlier this year. So that's kind of what I'm watching out for. Otherwise, ain't nothing doing but some more grooving here for me in chips. I don't disagree with anything that you said, does, but it's a wait and see thing. I'm not dumping every chip stock I own or every profit that I've made in chips just yet. But
It's
it is
possible.
concerning. It is concerning watching the day-to-day action of how they're getting thrashed, right? It'll be 3% up one day, 5% down in another, or it'll be just bleeding out 1% a day. And that can be really
It,
tough to watch.
It's not. This is exactly what happened in the opposite in the summer this summer, right? Nothing else participated except for chips. Everything is like, oh, look, the markets are green. Oh, literally everything's red besides Nvidia, Micron, AMD. Well, AMD is always red, but TSM, AMD's garbage.
It's
And so
bothering me, honestly. I mean, you guys know I have a big position in AMD, and it is,
Fucking
we've
hate
said
it.
it trades like garbage, but the price action is just abhorrent. I'll go to the chart now.
please
Uh,
don't. I would like my vision to be
no,
intact today.
it is
I
rough.
actually kind of like how it looks right now. I just I don't know. I don't know if I don't trade them all. Like I
Here, here's how I would picture chips, right? Over the next month for me is they are in a hole as a box. They are in a distribution dispersion cycle. And
Okay.
within that chip box, they are going to rotate dispersing or distributing
uh,
AMD, NVIDIA, AMD, Intel. All of these names are going to go back and forth for the next month while they slowly trickle lower. That's what I think is going to happen. I'm not saying
That's
I know.
exactly what's happened. It's making me nauseous and seasick watching
Yeah.
shit.
But we've been talking about this rotation for about a month and a half now, right? Like chips have looked like garbage for a long time.
We talked
Um,
about it with Cookie.
yeah, yeah. And so part of me, there's a part of me that says NVIDIA has topped completely out. I talked about it in June, and dude, the June conversation was sell NVIDIA, buy Tesla. And it wasn't that NVIDIA is going to go down, it was that Tesla was going to outperform. And since that moment, Tesla is up 100 and what? Nearly 200%. 138 is what it hit that low back in April 19th. And we just tagged to 361, so 150%.
Currently 150%.
Yeah. And what has NVIDIA done since then? Since that low? I think it's like 15, 20%, maybe more.
Currently 76%.
Oh, wow. Okay. Since the April 19th low. Holy crap. Okay. So both have done really well. You couldn't have gone wrong in either one,
But you could have done better.
exactly.
That's all. And Nick, I want you to jump in here. That's always the case, right? And I think that's where, coming full circle on our conversation to start, that's what fucks up with a lot of people's head is you might have 3, 5, 10 things on your watch list, and you go by the one, and it's just sort of treading water, right? And
Yeah.
something else that was maybe second or third on your watch list. Let's use Snowflake for example, just bust crazy, right? 30% after earnings. That's kind of hard to watch for some people, and they'll chase or they'll you know, move money around, and then all of a sudden, whatever they invested in first goes through the roof, right? And it's just you don't have the patience to wait. Nick, is that what you think too?
Yeah, the conversation I've been having with uh just kind of guys in my circle have been like, most growth or momentum guys, risk wise, they generally try not to risk more than like 2% of their capital per trade. And then maybe like a 6 to 10% like risk of ruin, in the sense that like if they got stopped out of every position that they have on, they'd drop out like, let's just say 8 to 10%, 10% on like a fucking hot market, probably capping that like 4 to 6% on a choppier or a tougher market. If you're trying to avoid getting chopped up, some of the things that I've mentioned are taking, like, there's not a reason to be in, for one, be all in, all out. You don't need to be in a full size position in every one of your positions. And there's nothing wrong with taking fucking smaller size, going to like even quarter size positions. And if you're going to take quarter size, like, instead of being in 4 to 8 names, you could be in 12 to 16 names. And you run a lot lower risk of missing something that you are really wanting to be a part of. If you're not in a full size and you're playing it that way, you have the ability to leg in and add into those positions and then just cutting the other ones that aren't working. Yeah, you could run into a situation where it was just like an off day for one of those other positions, which, that happens, but you're making up for it by making sure that you're involved in one of the hotter momentum or growth names. Again, if that's your style. Like if you're after the growth momentum name, that's kind of just the way you've got to play it. If you're, more of a, I don't know, again, long-term investor or trend trader or position trader, something like that, like, whole nother conversation. But
What's
risk,
worse,
like,
FOMO or ego? Ego can be like
yeah,
just too stubborn to sell a loser, or too stubborn to sell a winner that's got weakness.
yeah. You hear a lot about, don't chase. And I'm definitely in agreement with that. Um, until you've kind of like earned the right to chase. And I guess by earning the right, I mean like you have the seat time. So like if you're going to chase a name, I think I don't know, I can't remember if we talked about this in a previous, or if I was talking to somebody else about this, but if you're going to chase a name, just chase it with smaller size so that if it does pull back to where you should have entered in the first place, you can leg into it without and taking on any additional risk. Like you'd still keep your stop at the same place. It's going to hurt a little. You've got to know you got to
Wider
know.
stops, smaller position,
Yeah, yeah.
larger position, smaller stops, right?
Right.
It's standard, right? If you have a 20% range in which you want to buy, don't blow your wad at the top of the 20% range.
So
That
FOMO
seems
or
like
ego,
common sense.
which is worse, FOMO or ego?
Uh,
I mean, I think FOMO is,
ego.
sure.
I think ego in general, like on a life conversation, ego is what gets in the way a lot of times. And so FOMO sucks and you probably get punched in the face. I'm not saying you won't. But yeah, ego will destroy you in this game, right?
FOMO can be okay, from my perspective. Like you can buy in if there are key levels, right? Like, rarely are you going to see um, completely cleaned off the bone, meaning that there's no profit left on something that's run, right? Like anything can trade. And I think if you find a key level at something that's run, let me pull Snow back up for just a second. Like I can make a case that this is still a good spot to buy in the low 170s, one lows or higher 160s.
Yeah.
Right? So I wouldn't
Well,
say that just because you missed 32% last week that you still can't hit another 20%, right?
That's like, that's
strength begets strength, always.
Right?
Sorry, go
Like
ahead.
I would rather have a huge parabola than just down and to the right, ultimately.
Yeah.
I think that comes with seat time and understanding, I guess I don't want to say maybe knowledge of strategy and gaps. Like if I was looking at snow and looking to like, and I had wanted to chase it, I'd be looking at like the high volume, that EPS candle that popped it up, and looking to get long either versus through the high of that or versus the low of it. If price comes down and undercuts the low of that candle, my entry then is either on the retest of the base or the recapture of the low of that high volume candle. So there's like tons of ways to play it. And like the thing is, the reason I kind of like the idea of chasing names is because you already have the wind at your back. You know this is in favor just based on how hard this thing popped. And then again, if you want to, if you're adding into it or chasing it through the high of that high volume candle, your thought process should be or anticipating kind of like a post EPS drift where it's going to kind of chop sideways. You might not care, you might not have a bunch of follow through right away because again, depending on your time frame, you're going to want those lower time frame moving averages to catch up, whether that's the 10, the 20, or at the very least the 50 curling through the 200. So, I mean, there's just a lot of things that like come into play when you're like thinking about this stuff. And again, like kind of back to the earlier conversation, you can't replace the seat time. But I don't know where I was going with that. I just kind of
No, that you were good.
You have
That was very
like,
succinct.
for instance, like I'd run fibs from basically the breakout there at 135 up to, let's just say 180, 177. There it can give you a good idea of like, all right, where would I really like to ideally see this thing hold? And interestingly, the 50% is right in alignment with the low of that high volume candle, which is November 21st. So your line in the sand really on a short-term trade should be that low.
Yep.
It gets taken out, you exit the trade, just set your fucking alert for that price again, because once price reclaims that low, your immediate thinking should be that price is going to then gravitate back towards the high end of that candle, which is back at 175. And from there, you're thinking, okay, well, if that ends up happening, then chances are the momentum's back, moving averages have caught up, and we're ready. Enough time has passed for price to consolidate. I don't know. That's just kind of what I was
No,
thinking.
Nick, that makes sense. We do have a few questions. So when we were talking about setups and free alpha, Alexander said deer, John Deere green.
Love it.
I mean, that was a good
I own
setup.
it. Yep.
Yep, that was a good setup. What else we got?
We're talking about
Alexander says Kodak, a call out on Duzio. Financials look strong to support the move. GP, was there a reason why you just because Kodak's a very mature company is the reason why you're picking on Kodak specifically? What were you teasing Duzio?
No, it's not even a Vizio conversation, but Kodak, because it has higher short interest than most companies, it's one that when people start to cover the stock, cover the shorts, it's like the end of cycles. And they have like, I think all of this stuff ends when Kodak goes back to just being a camera business, right? They've gone from blockchain to AI to crypto to like they just change their names and do all their things, and they try to ride the trend. They said sell more shares. So it's part of that meme universe, right? So when this pops up on the radar, it's just time for me to be cautious, right? In general. That's it. Kodak has been around for a long time, but it has not been a relevant stock.
When Amazon Moon. I mean,
I think
another,
go ahead.
here's another stock that I mean I wouldn't have any problems buying right here. But Nick, you were going to say?
Yeah, because I think Amazon is the least of if we're talking about like the election crap, I think Amazon has the least to worry in terms of a beef with Elon and whoever else is, like his beef is going to be with Microsoft, Google, and probably Meta would be my guess. I don't know, maybe a little bit with Apple, probably not as much. Amazon, I don't think so, and I think
he doesn't like Bezos at all. He actually said wasn't he flirting a rumor about Bezos and shorting Tesla? Like he's not a fan of Jeff Bezos at all. But I think he understands probably better than a lot of people that this is all an ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
And he'll mess around. He will fight Zuckerberg. He will make stupid comments. They may not like him.
They never fall.
They're
yet another one of his claims that he hasn't done or lived up to. But I digress. Go ahead.
My whole point is it's an ecosystem. These guys all need each other at this moment. Maybe that changes in the future, but they can bicker, they can squabble, they can do all this shit. But there is no Tesla if there isn't a Google and Apple phone, right? Their entire thing is based off of a phone app, right? And not having keys and stuff like that, all their flexibility and functionality. Yes, the car is great, but the car is great because it's an ecosystem of different applications that work together to get to. If he builds his own phone and builds his own ecosystem of everything, then maybe that changes. But at this point, he needs them all to be around and be around in a way that they're positively contributing to the ecosystem. So it goes back to the rotation conversation.
Amazon's up 140% in 2 years. That's not Tesla's move in what, 6-8 months, but at the same time, like I'm not expecting Amazon to jump 146% in that time frame.
Yeah. But Amazon's not your growth stock. It is your steady Eddie, right? It is sitting above all-time highs. Tesla is not. Microsoft sitting above all-time highs. Tesla is not. Facebook, Meta sitting above all-time highs. Tesla is not. NVDA above all-time highs. Tesla is not, right? Like I can go through the list. Netflix. How many more do we want to go through that are sitting above all-time highs that Tesla is not? All that stuff is noise, right, Nick? Ultimately.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Amazon, I think is a pretty solid play. Like I think you've got to run to like 240, 250 is kind of where I think it's heading, at least in the near term, let's say within the next like 6 to 8 months.
Yeah.
Is just kind of what I think on it, or where I think Amazon is going. I don't know. I mean, I still kind of like all the mega caps, but again, yeah, I think if you're talking like over the next 10 years, I think these things still all 5x from here. But that's like,
I will need to see a reason why something goes from 3 trillion to or 3.5 trillion to 20 trillion. Would need to see it because right now that's
yeah.
I'm not saying it can't happen. When we were at 100 billion, we thought getting to 1 trillion would be hard. I'm not saying that it can't happen. There's got to be a shift in where is this money going to come from? Money is a finite source, right? Ultimately, so where do these things start getting to the 15-20 trillion dollar market caps, right? Like when people talk about Bitcoin being a $1 trillion market cap, I mean, being $1 million per Bitcoin, that's a lot of money being invested and held in Bitcoin. It's got to come from somewhere at this point.
I think there's going to be like, I mean, it's probably a whole nother conversation, but in terms of like crypto and tokens and coins and all that shit, like I honestly think that each one of these mega cap names is going to come out with their own token.
I hope they don't. I honestly hope they don't do that.
I'm just saying I think that's the way it's going to go.
No, I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying I hope they don't do that. And for a multitude of reasons, probably a better discussion at a different time than 10 minutes, 15 minutes left before we end this. But I have since COVID happened, I have been yearning for a united front globally, right? And if these guys do their own individual tokens, it chops another peg off my hope of united fronts across the world. We're in a global world and would like to see everyone rise together. And it would take away from that. And
I understand where you're going, Nick, and I don't think that's going to happen because then you have too much dispersion of capital. I mean, it would be no different than a stock, right? At that point, you'd have an Apple coin, you'd have an Amazon coin, and what's the point other than money going directly into their pockets as opposed to going through the current financial system? So I think that there's a lot of old ways built in that are going to be hard to release from the shackles of basically. Not that I think that what you're saying is unreasonable. I don't. I think it could happen, but I think that there's too much structure in place that keeps the powers that be the powers that be.
Yeah.
I mean, I honestly hope you're correct. I don't know. I just kind of have my, I guess, kind of vision of like where I think we're kind of going globally, and even with like I don't know. I feel like we're even moving away from globalization. I think we're moving more towards continentization.
We're nationalizing. Actually going the opposite of globalization. We're going to populism or
The whole
I don't like it, but it's what it is. The pendulums shift always drastically to one side, then the other, and then usually end up in the middle somewhere. So we went full hog to globalization. Now we'll go the other way, and then we'll settle in the murky middle. Right? it's the 50% fib retracement, whatever you want to call it. It's a life pattern. So you want to get to some charts?
We got a request on Mobileye.
I had Mobileye I posted a while ago because it was kind of
like
an island. I love the entry here, and I think the trade. I think it hasn't even gotten started. I think once it reclaims 25, you're going to be looking at this thing back at all-time highs, and then a whole nother setup as it takes out all-time highs. But
yeah,
I don't have a position on it currently, but I like it a lot.
I agree with you, Nick, 100%.
So this doesn't fall into my universe of stocks I want to trade because there's a guy on Twitter, Banana3. He talks about it a lot. Big shout out to him because he's been on it for a long time. I know he started at the higher range, but he's been all over it, averaging down, and he's covered it. So if you want like detailed, in-depth analysis, you should check out his Twitter page on Mobileye because he talks about it a lot. But for me,
shout out Banana3.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, there's too many distribution monthly candles for me to get excited about this. And that's fine. That's just not how my trade works, right? In terms of I think we've bottomed overall, but it may go higher here. Maybe it goes back and test 25, but I ultimately think you get another shot at the low range, basically a double bottom. But
COHR.
That's
coherent.
me.
It's a chart from our friend Alexander.
Yeah.
I like it here. I would have liked to have really seen it hold that 20-day, which it still obviously could close above it. I think 95 is actually slight. I have a stop at 94 on a current trade with it. So, yeah, I don't know.
It's a defined risk pivot, right? Against that 100 level is what I would say. Closes above, stay long, closes below. Either you want to add or get out, right? That's kind of where I'd be.
Yeah, totally.
Well, just in this upcycle since August that it's had a couple different periods, right? A few different days of even dipping below that 50. Nick, I think you're probably right. I would probably I mean, if it were my trade and I were already long, I would probably put something around 94, 93 and a half, something like that would kind of be where I would stop out, most likely.
I mean, if it takes that out, you could probably bet that it's heading back to at least 90, if not going to undercut the low of that, and then again kind of reclaim. Because if it undercuts that, then I'm just thinking like it needs more time. It's a little extended from the 200 days, so again, it might just need a little bit more time. I love the trade. I think it looks great.
I think if you get the opportunity of 80, you can probably buy comfortably.
Yeah, for sure. I would agree.
Yeah.
Not saying that it's going to get there. I'm just saying if that opportunity presents himself, or you could just throw in orders at 80 if you're so inclined. I don't know much about the company, but I would just say that 80 mark is probably your biggest line in the sand.
Well, if you're just looking at, price action or the moving averages or even stochastic or RSI, like it's rolling over here some, right? So I think it would be reasonable to expect lower prices. How low? That's the question, right?
Yep. Pratt, what's going on?
What up, Pratt?
Aren't you happy you took a job at Datadog? Woot woot.
D-Dog just rip roaring. I can't believe how well I called that bottom last year. I mean, I literally told Pratt, like, I think you're at the bottom of your workplace right now. I think this 60 range is going to hold, and then less than a week later, off to the races, baby boy.
Absolutely. You guys watching Upstart?
Yeah.
Nope, but you are.
I opted not to take the trade this morning, and I'm kicking myself for it.
I got out. I got out Friday actually because I'm like a lot of fintech, in my opinion, was running a bit hot, so I wanted to cool, and obviously I was wrong. Uh, and that's okay. It happens quite often actually. Um,
There's my PayPal trade that I almost took. What would PayPal have been? We need to look at our hit list too on our names. When did we do that? October? Is that right? Like the 1st of October?
yeah,
So it's only up 15% since then. But we already went over snow, so I'm not going to gloat too much on my trade that GP decided he didn't want. So I won't gloat too much. And what did you guys have? I don't remember.
I had Wayfair.
Vert
Hit
or did
list.
I
There we
get
go. What is it? Stomp picks. There we go. Wayfair, the
Vert?
W, and Vertiv again. Did you have that before, or is this a first time caller situation, Nick?
It was the first time for our contest. Was the first time, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm I love this Wayfair pattern here,
It
right?
looks good.
Right. It looks phenomenal, right? And I know, we've been talking about accumulation for like a nearly 2 years now, right? But if you take a look at this monthly candle on Wayfair, even here at the bottom, what is happening? They are accumulating. It is a 3-year downtrend that is actually breaking this week here too. Um, it is not an expensive stock by any means, in my opinion. I'm a huge fan of this. At some point, it should work. I hope it's before the contest ends, but I win anyway because I chose snow as well.
No, you didn't choose snow.
I
You
gave you
didn't.
snow.
You
No,
didn't
I'm joking.
choose snow.
I'm joking. I don't really care about this contest. So,
Yes, you
uh,
do. Says the guy who's never won the contest.
exactly what I don't care.
Oh, whoa! This is some fighting words, Bags. Woo!
I'm just stating facts. Nick, Vertiv is doing okay.
Hopefully, it
You're
recovers.
up like, what is that? Like 26%. I mean, not everybody can do 32% a day, right? Like, I get it.
I yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll lose this contest every single quarter if I can get my hymns plays like this. So, because that's all that really matters.
That's all that
100%.
matters. Go to Walgreens and get you some hymns.
Yes. And at some point, Tesla will stop being an absolute dick. But until then, it should be fun. This and there's a lot of euphoria. So there's one conversation I wanted to have, which is I think we might have had it, but I couldn't remember. I talk a lot about this stuff, so I don't always know who I'm talking to about. But there's a conversation of euphoria, right? And I kind of brought it up with the Kodak and conversation. Um, last time, and there's a lot of comparisons to 2021, right? In how some of these stocks and names are behaving. And all I can tell you is that look at the charts of the stocks when they were behaving like this in 2021 and look at the charts of how they're behaving now. They are sitting at what, 70, 80% discount. And I'll give you HIMS for example, right? HIMS is growing 77% quarter over quarter. It is worth $5.5 billion on Friday. I don't know what it's worth today, but 5.5 or $5.4 billion. They're going to do in this upcoming year, this consecutive rolling year, 1.6 or $1.7 billion in revenue. They are free cash flow positive by 80 million. If you're talking about fundamentals every quarter, so they're putting about $300 million onto their balance sheets every year moving forward. And for this to break out, you're trading at less than 3 times total sales. When we were doing this in 2021, Snow was at 100 times sales, right? Things
The
were in the
valuations are on their head, basically.
yeah, and you have IWM small caps, which by the way is a index that is designed for failure, not like the S&P. The IWM is actually designed for failure. Because if you succeed, you get moved out of the IWM and you go to the MDY or you go to the QQQ or you go to the SPY. So success actually doesn't help you IWM, which is why it looks so terrible most of the time until it trends. But the IWM is literally just after 3 years, took out all-time highs today. That is not euphoric to me.
That's I that's
That is just starting.
I kind of think what we're I disagree with you, Bags, in the sense that I do think come January we're gonna see another like a good three a good 3 month whether it's a base and we just move sideways or we wedge like down. I just think it's gonna be something short, like 4 to 12 weeks, as opposed to a year long meltdown like we had in 2022.
I am clear and on the record is I hope what I
No,
fear doesn't happen. And
I
there's your
know.
word, fear. We were texting back and forth about fear and hope last week. And I hope that my fear does not happen. And I am prepared for it if it does. I mean, you guys convinced me to hop back in my TNA last week, and it was the best thing I could have done, right? Like we talked on Monday, we are here. Tuesday near the close, I bought it back.
Yeah.
So I'm I am okay with being wrong. And I don't want negative things to happen to any of us, but I'm not, I've been more absent over the last 12 to 14 months in trading than I have in years. I'm not going to be caught in a situation where I'm sitting on my hands or I'm busy with life, not properly managing my portfolio. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's all it is. And I'm not saying that on January 20th, uh, Hanks, I'm the by the election, sell the inauguration is a window of time that I want to be more active and not necessarily sell out of everything that I have, but be prepared for the upcoming 3, 6, 9, 12 months for.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I just that's all. Like I think we're gonna kind of like as far as the cues, it's gonna look kind of very similar to like April through October is kind of what I'm thinking that we're gonna see, where it's like we kind of see the sideways action, or even kind of wedging down with that kind of capitulation low. Or at least I don't know why I'm leaning that way. I think I am kind of leaning that way. Maybe because of the euphoric talk, maybe I guess is
Yeah.
probably
So GP on more of the euphoric talk, you know, here's anecdotal evidence, and you know I love anecdotal evidence. I love seeing things in the real world that make me embolden or help change my thesis. Right? I've been going to a therapy for twice a week now for months, and there's a litany of conversations in there. And you guys know where I live. You guys know a lot of the political talk I receive or hear.
Yeah.
You would not believe how much the economy has gotten better in the last 3 weeks. Like this time last month, the economy is the worst it's ever been. Now, oh, the economy's good. Well, the price of eggs hasn't fucking changed,
yeah.
right? Like, so I think a
I
lot
mean,
of
gas is down like 60 cents a
a
gallon up
lot
here.
of things is just perspective. And we've talked about perspective a lot, not just our own perspective, but worldwide perspective, others' perspective. And you would, I've heard it over the last 2 weeks. Oh my God, how much better everything is. Well, everything hasn't drastically changed in 3 weeks, like other than an election was
Yeah.
complete, right? So I think there is some euphoria out there that people are. I just left Walmart 2 hours ago, seeing people, push out 60-inch screen televisions. That's not the behavior you expect to see when things are bad, right?
It's also Black Friday, so typically.
I'm just pointing out the anecdotal. I'm not
I'm only
saying that it's a
messing.
tell one way or another. It's just behavior that I am witnessing.
So yeah, and I think ultimately it's because of where you are and the people who vote the way they vote feeling a sense of relief that they won, right?
That's exactly what I was.
And there's parts of this country where there's despair now, but ultimately we talked about this before elections. As long as elections happen and they're clear and concise, we move forward. And when we move forward, life is just better. And like obviously my party, I don't have a fucking party. I just didn't want I don't want bad people to succeed. That's just me. Um, and if it's better for the country, great. If it's not, we'll take it. It's a 4-year cycle, and we'll come back. We've endured so much worse. All of us were alive and old enough to live through 9/11, right? And 9/11 was a much, much, much worse time than anything that's going on right now. So I am
I hope you're
hopeful.
right.
I'm hopeful and cautious that life will be fine 4 years from now, right? And I'm not sitting here talking to you from India.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. I do not want, regardless of our political leanings and what we believe the market is going to do. The biggest reason why I am bullish is because that benefits the most amount of people, right?
Yep.
Because most people just have their retirement funds, and that is just money poured into the stock market that they never touch and they never get to touch until they are ready to retire and take it out. And the better the market does in the long run, the better everyone is. And that's why I'm always bullish, because I want to see people do well. I want to
Yep.
see all of us do well. And that's just where I'm at, and that's my personal beliefs.
That makes sense. But listen, guys, market's closing soon, so I got to get back to my group,
Yeah.
and answer some questions and just chat through some of the stuff. I appreciate your time. Always a pleasure. You guys can continue if you want, but I got to head back.
We're
I got
we're at an
to
hour. That's time.
All right.
Love you guys. See you next week.